Thank you so very much, and what a wonderful welcome we get each evening. And the summary of what we've heard and what we will be hearing. And you heard about the foods that will be discussed this evening and nutrition, but not only the physical foods that we all enjoy so much. Who doesn't enjoy eating here? Anybody who doesn't enjoy food here? You know, I think everybody is quite comfortable because I don't see a single hand raised. And that's a very important thing. We've not only talked this week about choices, we've talked about optimism, we've talked about integrity, about the importance of being honest. We've talked about hope. We've talked about exercise. Dare I ask if any of you are exercising more than you did when you started coming? Oh, brother, we better start all over again. You know, exercise is not just jumping to conclusions or running other people down. It's really getting out there and moving and being fit. We've also talked about liquids, drinking water. We've talked about the environment, which is so essential to sustaining life and health. We've talked about the things that make the difference regarding our habits and avoiding addictions, things related to tobacco and alcohol, things that we should totally avoid. And this evening, as we go the next step in our celebration of hope, we look at the topic of nutrition. Now, you just imagine if you were looking at the car of your dreams, this sports car, maybe not this one, maybe a Lamborghini or a Ferrari or Maserati or whatever you really like that we dream about. Some do. And there it is, and it's yours. You have it, you look at it, it's beautiful, it's wonderfully finished. You open the door and you smell the wonderful leather smell. You sit in it, it's so nicely finished. You start it up and everybody looks because this is just the real deal. And so you have this car, which is something that you've wanted to have, looked to having, and now you have it. Would you take it and instead of putting in high performance fuel, just put in regular? And if you saw that it needed some additional oil, would you put water in the oil container or into the sump? Would you, if you thought it needed an additional little bit of oomph, throw some sugar into the gas tank? Well, you know, we have the most wonderful, wonderful body, which was far more beautifully designed, created, made to be maintained. And I wonder sometimes whether we wouldn't treat this fancy sports car better than we treat our bodies. Because if you consider the things I suggested doing, they're outrageous. Placing water in the oil, sugar in the fuel tank. But you know, the kind of things and the choices we make with our bodies are far more crucial. Our bodies are far more beautiful, far more functional, last much longer, and are made to last us for life. Like a fine sports car, our bodies need fuel to power them. That's why we eat 3 times a day. Hopefully not more than that. Sometimes 2 meals is good, but we need to fuel this wonderful body that has been given to us with the appropriate foods. A balanced diet chosen from the very best foods that you can get within the environment you find yourself will provide the essential nutrients needed for growth, maintenance of the body, and for energy requirements. If you choose low-quality foods or do not eat enough of the essential foods, the body machinery will suffer. Too much food results in what? Too much food results in obesity. Too little food in malnutrition. Why wait for a special occasion then to celebrate? You know, have you noticed how often we celebrate around a meal? When you're sitting eating and you have friends and you start to talk, you eat, you relax, you enjoy, the food becomes more tasty. Sometimes we eat more of it than we should, but we celebrate, and we should celebrate every meal with healthy food choices. In each meal, we can enjoy an absolute cornucopia of wonderful foods with grains, fruits, nuts, cereals, along with the wonderful vegetables containing an abundance of those vitamins, minerals, dietary fibers, and phytochemicals. Phytochemicals are not the chemicals that make you argumentative. Phytochemicals are the chemicals which are great antioxidants and protect your body from many of the dangerous processes which can take place, including cancer, immune problems, infections, and so on. Enjoy the essential fats in crunchy nuts and seeds, bone-building calcium from low-fat milk or a fortified milk equivalent, dairy equivalent like soy milk. Enjoy healthful proteins from satisfying legumes, beans, peas, lentils, seasoned delicately with herbs, small amounts of salt and sugar. And I want you to notice that we're talking about small amounts of salt and sugar. I wish we had the time to talk about many more things, but salt, somebody said to me the other day, well, isn't sea salt very good? My answer had to be salt is salt, and we should cut down and use as little of it as possible. Vegetable oil is needed. Other energizing body foods in the natural fats are very helpful and should be consumed daily in the appropriate quantities to help our bodies function well and avoid those life-threatening diseases like cancer, coronary heart disease, high blood pressure, intestinal diseases, obesity, osteoporosis. We can therefore really celebrate at every meal. What you should do when you get to your meals is not say, oh no, here we have to eat again. What we should be doing is we should be saying, what a privilege it is to look at well-prepared, well-chosen, well-selected foods which are going to make the difference to celebrating health because of the abundance that God has given us. Some people think that good nutrition is difficult. You know, as we travel around the world, so many people tell us, well, you know, where we live, it's much easier and cheaper to buy fast foods. Well, if you go to the supermarkets and look at some of the foods that I've mentioned, the legumes, the lentils, the peas, the brown rice. Did you hear what I said? What color rice? You know, sometimes we eat slightly off-color white rice, which mainly I think is just dirty white rice. It should be brown rice. You know, what we do, we've learned to so refine things that we take the husks and all the vitamin-containing material, feed that to the pigs, and we eat the leftovers. Go figure how clever we have become. So let's start with the understanding part. Our bodies get nutrients from the food we eat and digested, as in this wonderful process that begins right in the mouth. And I want you to think about this for a moment. Don't just listen to this as a talk which is talking about nutrition, but think of the wonders of creation as you think about what you're hearing. Imagine the food, whether it's a piece of fruit or some cooked rice or legumes. As you eat it, the digestive process begins right here in your mouth with the saliva. And then there's a wonderful process as your teeth refine it. It goes down into the stomach. It's digested and churned into a mushy soup. You know, maybe you won't think so highly of the food if you listen to what I'm telling you. Then it goes further down and gets further enzymes added to it. And so it goes all the way through. And as it goes through, the body is absorbing all those essential components and substances which build the body, give us energy, and help us to enjoy life. You know, as we do all this, maybe it's important to mention that we should try and avoid eating between meals. I'm reminded of the story I heard not long ago, or quite a while, when I was in practice, where the doctor says to the patient, "Now, sir," and the patient was quite a hefty individual, "whatever you do, don't take this medication on a full stomach, on an empty stomach. Don't take it on an empty stomach." And the fellow looked at him as he sat in the chair and actually overflowed the chair and said with a twinkle in his eye, "Don't worry, Doc, I never have one of those." Now, what we need to do is to ensure that we do have empty stomachs from time to time, with regularity of eating, giving the body opportunity to absorb, digest, and take good care of what we need. There are a number of things we need. We need carbohydrates. That's the largest portion of the diet. And these should come in as unrefined a form as possible. They include whole grains, legumes, fruits, and vegetables. They're approximately 4 kilocalories to a gram in carbohydrates. So you can work out that if you take so many grams, you'll be taking in so many calories. I want you to notice that it's 4 per gram of calorie, but 8 per gram of fat. So just remember that when we come to the fats, and you'll understand why we say that you should have less fats than you do of carbohydrates. Proteins. Every cell in your body requires protein. The tissue repair in each cell, in your muscles, in your bones, all require protein. All foods contain a certain amount of protein, albeit some of it very little. Excellent sources are some of the dairy products, other animal products, but the most healthful sources are those coming from legumes, excellent plant sources. Now, remember, each gram of protein yields, again, 4 calories. Now, I'm listing for you all the foods which will give protein, but emphasizing, as we do when we talk about fats and carbohydrates, the healthful components that you should look to. And we talk and understand, and it's scientifically proven, that the most healthful form of all nutrition comes from that which is plant-based. Fats. These are a very concentrated form of energy, and we often get too much fat because we like the flavor it gives to food. Fat is the aspect of food which gives food its flavor and often the smell. So when the things are frying, you can smell it. It's the fat. It stimulates the appetite. So fats, although they can be very tasty, can be very problematic because they have double the amount of calories per gram that carbohydrates have. Consider, for example, the difference between a boiled or baked potato and the French fries, which we sometimes like to enjoy so much. We also want to look to getting all those antioxidants we talked about, and the less refined and the less prepared and just well cooked, well prepared that food is, the better you get those substances. Now, there are 5 essential food groups that we need. These are the legumes, nuts, and seeds, and that's to start with. Then we have cereals and grains, and these should form the foundation of our diet. Cereals and grains should make up the greater portion of what you eat. The rice, the pastas, the whole grain breads, the corns, all the things that one gets so readily and so happily here in the Philippines. Of course, they're rich in fiber, they have complex carbohydrates, and also the vitamins and minerals that we're looking for, particularly when they're not refined. According to your age and weight and activity, we should take between 6 and 12 servings of these each day. They also offer a variety of colors and textures. And then, of course, we come to fruits and vegetables. What a beautiful picture that is. This reminds me of going down to breakfast where I'm staying every day, looking at the fruit, the watermelon, the other melons, the oranges, the bananas, the various fruits which are really so tasty, so well colored, and add to that the berries and especially the jackfruit, and for Elder Wilson, even the durian. The color that it has, the flavor that some people think it has, and all those wonderfully enjoyable things. So those are great foods, many colors, lots of antioxidants, and you should be taking a good portion of servings of that every day to be happy and healthy. Then, of course, again, I mentioned very briefly, but I want to take the time so we understand it well. We've talked about cereals, we've talked about fruits. We're now talking about legumes, nuts, and seeds. We should have 3 to 5 servings a day of these. They give us protein. The nuts will give you some healthful fats as well, some magnesium, very healthy for high blood pressure and for general cardiovascular health. Now, often people say to us, well, how much or how many nuts should or could I eat a day? And the answer is a flat palm amount of nuts. It's this flat, not this. It's a single flat palm of nuts each day. That's the kind of healthy amount of nuts, and it's been shown that people who eat nuts between 5 to 7 times a week have less high blood pressure, have less cardiovascular disease, have better mental health and cognitive function. They also live longer. And even though there are some fats in the nuts, there is a tremendous health benefit to taking them. They're excellent sources of these really needed healthful fats, but they also have calories. So remember, watch the amounts that you take. Should be limited to no more than 1 to 2 servings per day. And then, of course, the non-vegetarians include fish, fowl, and meat in their proteins. I want to just pause for a moment here. So many people say to me, well, why is it that you recommend that we don't eat meat? There are many good reasons for it. Red meat, flesh food, is related to an increase in cardiovascular disease. But here's something I want to share with you, because the red meat and cardiovascular disease has been known for many years. But there is something which you need to know, that people who consume meat on a regular basis, which includes 3 to 5 times per week, have a 300% increase in colon cancer. 300%. That's a major factor. Now, here's another important fact that you need to know. That even if you are eating some meat, but you were to start adding to that legumes on a regular basis, you will begin to bring that risk down for 2 reasons. Firstly, you're consuming a healthful protein base. Secondly, the more legumes you take, the less desire and room you're going to have for the meat. And thirdly, it provides the protective components which are needed when one is eating any kind of diet. The optimal diet is that which is based basically on plants. I want you to remember that because it's important. Then there's the dairy and eggs, or fortified equivalents, and we mentioned the fortified equivalents because it's very important that what we're looking at food sources, protein sources, calcium sources. So when we go to products like soy milk, which are very healthful and very, very desirable, provided they are fortified. Because the body requires essential vitamins like vitamin B12. The body has 4 to 6 years supply of that, but if you do without B12 for longer than that, it begins to manifest with very serious problems and effects. So remember that these can be needed, but if one does use dairy and eggs, or even the fortified equivalents, which have a significant amount of fat in them, although it's plant fats, to remember that we should use them sparingly. Sparingly so that we do not have the negative effects of excessive calorie intake and the problems associated with that. The vitamin B12 is a very important factor for full and complete life enjoyment. And here's another point I'd just like to emphasize for a moment. People have said to me, isn't it important to take in lots of supplements? It's interesting how science and scientifically reviewed studies are showing more and more that the best way to consume the vitamins, the minerals, the phytochemicals is in the packages that God created them in. He placed them in the foods. So if you need to have those things, take the foods that contain them. Supplementation is important when something is missing. So when something's missing, you supplement it. That's an important point to remember. Also remembering that the supplement industry is a multi-billion-dollar industry. Multi-billion-dollar industry, and many of us support it because of the gullibility factor. If you're eating a well-balanced, natural, plant-based, fortified diet, supplements will only be needed in those cases where specific vitamins or minerals are lacking. We look at the fats, the oils, the sweets, and the salt. As you looked at this, maybe you were hoping I was going to say, this is something that you need to enjoy 3 times a day. Maybe just in your dreams. You need to take as little of these as possible, particularly in the refined forms that you're looking at, the sugars and the cream. Rather just have the berries without all the surrounding all the surrounding contamination that you see in the picture. Refined sugar is not required for good health, but in very small amounts, some who like it, it may add a little palatability to the food. But it's interesting, if you really try, if you look at the wonderful way in which the foods that are available to us have been provided from the hand of a loving creator, you will find that most things, apart from a little bit of salt, maybe a touch of sugar or honey, can be really very, very flavorful without being drowned in harmful substances. One of the most important ways of having a healthful diet is to, firstly, half fill your plate with vegetables, and then the other half with grains and the other components of food that we mentioned. Another very important aspect and guide in choosing the very best food so that you can celebrate nutrition and enjoy good health is to look at the colors. Your plate should look optimally like a rainbow. Beautiful colors, the reds, the yellows, the dark blue colors, the whites, all of those wonderful colors, orange, the bananas, each of those represents a wonderful rainbow of the kinds of foods that are healthy to eat and enjoy. And I want to just emphasize this once more. Go for the unrefined foods. Don't wait for foods to be fully refined, rather use them when they have those aspects of the fiber, the vitamins that are so needed, and you'll find that health is going to be optimal. Use plant foods as the basic foundation for all your meals. The recommendation of the American Dietary Society is this: use plant foods as the foundation, eating a variety of grains, especially the whole grains, fruits and vegetables, and this is the basis of healthful eating. Make half of your plate fruits and vegetables, and today the world is recognizing and embracing the benefits of a vegetarian diet, something which the Seventh-day Adventist Church has recognized and striven in many places to embrace over that time. 150 years. Sometimes it amazes me that it takes society and ourselves so long to come in line with the best that is available. Avoid the highly sweetened. Go for the simple foods and make sure that you have variety. And a healthful diet is really much easier to follow than you may think. Use some of the simple guidelines we've given to you tonight. Half of your plate should be fruits and vegetables. Avoid excessive fats. Avoid animal fats. Make sure that you are getting the appropriate numbers of servings a day. Don't eat in between meals. And continue making sure that you have variety, that you are taking the time to get the best quality that you possibly can. Balance is so important. You know, we talked about balance in life, the importance of temperance. That is essential when it comes to eating. You know that when one comes to eating, the way that your body functions is simple arithmetic. The amount of calories that goes in through the mouth and the amount of calories that come out through the amount of exercise and movement that you do equals the amount of fat you'll ultimately build up around your waist and wherever else you don't want it to be. And so balance is important. My vegetarian plate, an excellent example of how the proportions of vegetables, proteins, fruits, and grains should be, with a very little bit of dairy. Keep moving and make sure that you have enough variety, and that will help you to enjoy life. Moderation, we talked about that, related not only to alcohol, tobacco, and other drugs, but to things like oil, even the very healthful ones. Use them in moderation. We've dwelt a little on the importance of lessening the amount of salt that we use. Don't be like so many people who, as the food hits the table, the hand automatically goes out, picks up the salt, and assaults the food before they taste it. It's been shown that if we were to decrease the amount of salt consumption in the population at large by only 10%, we would be able to help, along with some other measures, decrease probably 3.5 million deaths every 5 years. Significant numbers, almost whole cities, which could be saved if we were to use these things in less excessive ways. And then comes the avoidance. These are things to avoid. In fact, so that you don't have nightmares, I'm going to switch slides so that you don't think of this too much. The refined, highly calorific, fatty, stimulating substances which you can do well without. Avoid caffeine, avoid alcohol, avoid sodas, and rather avoid even Fruit juices, only have one serving of fruit juice a day if that's what you like. Thereafter, switch to the beauties and the healthfulness of pure, clear water. And here in the Philippines, you have the absolute blessing of a wonderful program called Veggie Capable. Veggie Capable is a homegrown program available to use and to show the use of homegrown foods right here where you live. Go to the website, veggieCapable.org, and you will find there the most wonderful things to help you plan your diet, live a healthful life, and really celebrate nutrition. You know, we can celebrate God's goodness as we appreciate and appropriately enjoy the many products of the earth that He has given us, just as we require physical food. You know, physical food is something which we cannot do without. We've tried to sometimes. In fact, there was an Irish hunger striker who lived 33 days without eating. He then died. Food is essential. But as much as physical food is essential, because we are holistic beings with a body, a mind, a spirit, holistic beings, we need also to feed the inner person on spiritual food. We should not neglect to make a daily practice of feeding on God's Word. We've emphasized the need for variety, balance, and flavor in the foods we consume, but we also require a balance in our spiritual food as well. We can really feast and celebrate not only nutrition in our physical lives, but we can celebrate contemplating God's wonderful promises, reading inspirational stories and exhortations, and spending time daily in prayer. Don't you want to have that kind of life? Don't you want to have a life which celebrates nutrition, exercise, balance, rest, all those good things? The practices we've talked about will help us to grow spiritually. They'll help us to grow physically. Balance in life will come from lessons learned in reading God's Word. Let's do these things with praise in our hearts for a loving God who's given us energy and health, not only through the physical provision He's made, but through the provision of His Word, and most importantly, His Son Jesus. God bless you.